welcome back to Elise Reads and Speaks. Today I am bringing you my January wrap-up. January, I hit a new PR. I read 20 books. 20. I have never read that much in a month. That's why it's PR. Very exciting. However, this is not going to be an hour-long video. Like, talking about 20 books could take a while. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to edit it. I'm going to talk about the ones that I didn't like, talk about the ones that I like, maybe spend a little more time on the ones that I liked, and we are going to fly through this. So at the beginning of the month, I started with Serpent and Dove by Shelby Mahurin. And I did not like it. I gave it 2 stars. I was totally bummed by this one. I thought it would be something that I love. It's about a witch and a witch hunter, and they get married, and you know that she has to put on some sort of facade so that nobody goes around and kills her because she's married to this witch hunter. It sounds wonderful, right? However, it was not. I don't understand. I don't understand a lot of it. I was confused. I listened to the audiobook, but I still don't think that really had an impact on the story. I think it was the story itself that I just couldn't get into. And Big Titty Liddy, like, what the hell was that? What was I listening to? I don't understand. Anyway, major bummer for me. I thought it was gonna be right up my alley, only gave it 2 stars. That brings me to the next book that I read in January. That would be Laure by Alexandra Bracken. That was one of my most anticipated reads because, oh my God, look at that cover, look at it. I love the Greek gods, absolutely love them. And this was like a battle royale, okay? Like Hunger Games for the Greek gods. It sounded amazing. And it was just confusing. And the parts that weren't confusing were extremely boring. And the characters, they were boring. I wasn't rooting for any of them. I did not care that there was a relationship. There was a little twist at the end with one of the characters, but then it really wasn't that much of a twist because that character sucked throughout the entire book anyway. And by the time I got to the end of the book, I was like, come on, like I was really looking forward to this. I wanted the Greek gods to duke it out, and you took a story that had such promise and made it so boring. 2 stars, 2 stars. Okay. The third book that I read in January, another 2-star read, 2 stars, 2 stars, 3 times in a row. This one was Roman and Jewel by Dana L. Davis. What I will say for this one, I'm not that familiar with the author, but I did like her writing. I did find it very easy to read. However, the story itself just, I thought, had bad execution. I didn't like some things in it, and I just couldn't get behind it. This was a little bit of a take on Romeo and Juliet, Roman and Jewel. However, it's more of them rehearsing for these roles. So there was gonna be this show called Roman and Jewel that got like the hip opera side effects that Hamilton got, okay? So like that's the show that they were putting on. And the people that were cast as these roles, well, the understudy and the main guy that was cast as one of these roles start, you know, hitting it off and falling in love and whatnot. It sounds cute, but there was just a lot of muddled stuff in it that I couldn't buy. Plus, like, I'm from New York, so some of the stuff in there was extremely hard for me to buy. Like, you're rehearsing for your stuff in Times Square, okay? Like, that's where your rehearsal studios are. That I picture like Ripley Greer, if you're familiar with New York audition and rehearsal spots. Ripley Greer Studios is what I picture here. Now, there's this part in the story where this girl runs into this guy in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn. I'm like, I know to somebody that's not familiar with New York, it's gonna be like, yeah, whatever, it's New York. Dude, like, no, those 2 places aren't remotely close to each other. You have to hop like 3 different trains to make it all the way down south in Brooklyn to even get to Bay Ridge. My family's from there, so when I read it, I was like, no, does not compute, does not compute. Okay, but that's just a little side thing to go with the story. It was just like the romance was insta-lovey, and then there were no real stakes in it, and it was very unrealistic. I'm spending a lot of time talking about a 2-star book when there are other books that I could be talking about. So bottom line, didn't like that one. However, would be curious to read from the author in the future. And then the next book that I read in January finally got 4 stars. This was Allegedly by Tiffany D. Jackson. This one I buddy read with some people in book club, and I was pleasantly surprised by it. It's this girl's story. She has been in prison, you know, since she was a kid for killing a baby. But while she's in prison, she finally starts to tell her story that it really wasn't her that killed the baby. She was covering up for her mom. So it kind of like follows her story in this halfway house and how she kind of tries to seek justice so that she has more opportunities for herself when she gets out of there. That's all I'm really gonna say without giving anything else away. Oh, I will say there is a bit of a trigger warning in here, and not for what you'd expect. There is a mutilated animal. I do not like mutilation of any animals, and it really makes me sick, like to my stomach. It just grosses me out, and I was not expecting that when I got to it. So if that's something that really hits a chord with you, you may want to know about that going into it. It doesn't like come up again in the rest of the story, but I wish that I knew going into it. So just so you know, mutilated animal. However, the story itself was really good. It was kind of psychological. I wasn't expecting the ending and I was pleasantly surprised by it. Next, I listened to the audiobook of The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, and I really enjoyed this one. This was a 4-star read for me. It's about this girl who's kind of like plucked from obscurity and is given this major inheritance, and she doesn't know why. And the entire family doesn't know why. They don't know why this whole estate went to this girl and not the people that were like his blood relations. So it's kind of figuring out like what she is to that family, how she must have met this guy before, and if she didn't meet him, what her connection is to that man. And you know, there's a little bit of a love triangle in here, and I like a good love triangle, and I felt like this mystery kind of sucked me in, and I'm looking forward to reading the next one. And then the next book I read was another 4-star. This was an e-arc that I got from NetGalley. It's called Every Single Lie by Rachel Vincent. Really enjoyed this one. I felt like it had something to say about the things that go unnoticed, you know, things that we should be noticing and we're not, within families, within our friends. Like, it was very interesting. The premise is that this girl finds a newborn baby, well, a dead newborn baby, clearly one that was like born and had problems and died immediately. She finds it in a gym bag in a locker room, and then all these rumors start flying that it's hers. It's not hers, and you know it the entire time that it's not hers, but you're trying to piece together whose it is, where it came from, what the story is there, and all these secrets start getting uncovered about other people in the town. And it was really interesting, and it wasn't just the mystery. Again, I felt like it had something to say about, you know, are the kids all right? Are things happening that we're aware of? And are things happening that we're clearly not aware of, and what we should do to rectify that problem. I was fully immersed in that story. Then I listened to the audiobook of Majesty by Katharine McGee. This is the second book in American Royals. Thoroughly enjoyed this one, but not going to talk about it because anything that I say could be a spoiler. Then I read another e-arc. This was To Look a Nazi in the Eye. This one was by Kathy Kacer and Jordana Lebowitz. Now, Jordana had gone to this trial of Oscar Groening, who was known as the bookkeeper of Auschwitz, and I think he was 96 at the time of his war crime trial. So it was like a struggle of, you know, should they persecute him for the things that he did in Auschwitz, or had too much time gone by and he didn't directly kill anyone? Should he really be held responsible for that? It was very interesting. And I liked seeing her perspective. And then also I really enjoyed the rawness. Like, there were times that, not that she was sympathizing with him specifically, but she was seeing the other side of, like, you know, he didn't single-handedly kill someone. Can we still hold this person accountable? And if we don't, what else can we do? Like, I felt like this person was very truthful in how she was feeling and how she got to those feelings. And I really enjoyed that. Like, I wasn't being spoon-fed how I should feel. Like, I felt like the story let me come to my own conclusion. Then I listened to the audiobook of Concrete Rose by Angie Thomas. Really enjoyed this one. I loved The Hate U Give. I gave it 5 stars. Was not as into On the Come Up because I'm just not into hip hop, so I gave that one 3 stars. I'm happy to report that I was into Concrete Rose, and I gave that one 4 stars. I mean, clearly you really have to read The Hate U Give in order to enjoy Concrete Rose, because why else would you care about Maverick then? But I did read The Hate U Give, and I was interested in Maverick. Like, I just think his story is so interesting, and there's some really good stuff in here. And I've said this on my Goodreads review and even to some of my friends that we've had discussions with. And I think what I really like about Angie Thomas is that she confronts these stereotypes of the Black community, you know, the ones that people whisper and, you know, say, oh no, I didn't say that, I'm not racist. But she confronts them head on, and she's like, so what? Like, what if that's true? Does that still give you a reason to judge? And I really like that. I really like that, because no, we can't judge. We can't judge anybody for their life choices. We don't know exactly what's going on. You know, we don't know the whole story. I really found that interesting. I gave this one 4 stars. Really, really enjoyed it. Then I read another e-arc that I had. This was City of Villains by Estelle Laure. I was pumped for this one. If you remember my January releases that I was going to read, I was so stoked to hear about some Disney villains and their origin stories, and oh my God, was this disappointing. I gave it 2 stars. I was so bored. It was completely unrealistic. The characters just sucked. I mean, the characters sucked, and some of them were Disney villains. Like, how did you make some really cool villains really, really suck? Like, I don't know. Hats off to you, I guess. I don't get how you did that. But man, sorry, I'm just like so disappointed that I can't put my thoughts into words. I was very bored, and at the same time I was getting frustrated because you were getting told all these things and not shown them, and I can't stand that. And then all of a sudden, like, Captain Hook has a tattoo with this girl's name on it. Like, stop, okay? You don't hear about their relationship for the entire time, and then you have to believe that he's madly in love with her, and they're teenagers in high school. Oh, so stupid, so stupid. Okay, 2 stars. Clearly I don't recommend that one. Then the next book I read was Yesterday is History by Kosoko Jackson. This was another e-arc that I had from NetGalley. I gave it 3 stars. I enjoyed it. However, I recently did talk about this one in the February releases that I plan to read video, so I'm gonna link that down below because I think there's 2 or 3 more on this list that will correspond to that video, and I don't need to repeat myself. Then I listened to the audiobook of More Than Maybe by Erin Hahn. This is my February book club choice, and this was just okay. I gave it 3 stars. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. I don't really remember that much about it except that they were 2 kids that were really into music. So there isn't much to say about it. However, I remember having a little problem. Like, she's in high school and she's this like renowned vlogger about music. I'm sorry, but that is completely unrealistic. People that are so hardcore into music, like, you think they're really gonna read the blog of a high school girl? I couldn't wrap my brain around that. I think because my dad was so heavy into music. I mean, my dad has like thousands upon thousands of records that I inherited when he passed away, and I just can't picture him listening to the thoughts of a high school girl. I just couldn't wrap my head around that. So that's probably why it's not in 4 or 5 star category for me. However, it didn't suck, man. Like, it wasn't absolutely horrible. It was okay. 3 stars. Then I read an e-arc that I got from NetGalley. This was Revenge of the Sluts by Natalie Walton. Really, really enjoyed this one. I gave it 4 stars. I also talk about that in my February releases. I plan to read videos, so again, I will link that down below. Then I went on to a reread for me. Okay, this is the one that has the dual title, so if you want to call it Enchantee or All That Glitters, it is up to you. I reread this one. I read it first in 2019. I gave it 3 stars because I listened to the audiobook. This time I read it physically and I bumped it up to 4 stars because I felt like I was more able to take in those French names and I wasn't getting so confused. And I thought it was kind of charming, and I really did like the magic in this world and like the frivolous French society, and I could picture it really well. So I think it deserved the 4 stars. But then right after that, I went on to the sequel, which is an e-arc that I had from NetGalley, and I gave it 3 stars. This is Everything That Burns, or Liberte, whatever you want to call it. I gave it 3 stars because it was just kind of missing that charm. I mean, it wasn't bad, so it's not gonna be like a 2 or a 1 star, but I was just kind of hoping for the same thing that Enchantee had, and it was just a little lacking. Then I listened to the audiobook of The Cousins by Karen McManus, and I don't even know what happened there. There were so many different A names of relatives that I was getting them all confused, and I didn't care about most of them. I mean, they were cousins and they wanted money, and then they didn't get it, and then they did, and then they fought, and it was, oh, I expected more. I really enjoyed Karen McManus's One of Us is Lying, and then what was the other one? Two Can Keep a Secret. I liked that one too, and I expected so much more for The Cousins, and I just wasn't into it. 2 stars. Then I listened to the audiobook of Tangled in Time, The Portal by Katharine Lasky, and this is the book that was written for me, okay? It has time travel, it has this girl that travels back in time to the Tudor court. I mean, isn't that me written all over it? I love it, I love it, I love it, okay? Oh, she goes back in time and she figures out that this is like a family gene, and that her dad actually lives in this time period, like the Tudor England time period, and had something with her mom. Clearly, her mom has died, and you know that at the beginning of the story, but she's trying to piece out together more of her life while she's coming into contact with people like Bloody Mary and Queen Elizabeth, and it's so exciting. I cannot wait to go on to the second one. Then I read another e-arc. This was The Mysterious Disappearance of Aiden S., as told by his brother, or as told to his brother, one of those, by David Levithan, and I ended up giving this one 3 stars. I thought it was a compelling story. It was very short, it was very fast read, and I was into it, but I just felt there were a lot of things lacking. Like, you'd get halfway through the details of something and then it would kind of jump to something else, and you're like, but wait, I wasn't finished, and I felt like things were not fully hashed out. However, I did like the lesson that I took away from this, because this is all about a boy that goes missing for 6 days. He comes back, his very fantastical story, and of course, people respond to it the way that you would expect them to. Like, I'm a very honest person. I always think of that scene in Harry Potter where Tom Riddle is like, tell me the truth. And that's me, okay? I need the truth. I need the truth. If I feel like you're lying to me, I just write you off immediately. Can't stand it. So I understand how Aiden's parents treated him in this book. Not that they were mean by any means, but they didn't believe him, and they couldn't believe him because the story was outlandish. I think it was a lesson of how we treat people that have these stories, or, suspending that disbelief just for a minute if it's somebody that you care about. Like, I felt like there was something here. His brother was the most compelling piece of this. Like, Lucas didn't believe him, but then listened to him. And I felt like it was all about the importance of just listening. Like, you don't need to have advice, you don't need to believe or not believe, you don't need to have an opinion, but sometimes you just need to listen. And I felt like I took that lesson away from that story. Like, I felt like since I took something away from it, it couldn't be, less than 3 stars. I took something away. However, again, the execution, I felt like there were pieces that were missing. I felt like it could have been a much stronger book if it had been just a little bit longer. So that's why I can't rate it higher than a 3. Then I listened to the audiobook of The Midnight Lie by Marie Rutkowski, and this was okay. I gave this 3 stars. I think I was just expecting more of a magical story. It's kind of pitched as a fantasy with this magic that's happening, and it wasn't so much about the world building, the magic. It was more about the relationship between Nareem and Sydney. I will say, LGBT rep, that's pretty cool that you're seeing this in just some mainstream fantasy. I think that's neat. However, I just wanted more than just a romance. Like, I felt like I was just reading a romance, and I just didn't feel that much about it. I just finished it and I was like, it was okay. I think if there was more world building and more of the magic that I wanted to read in it, I think this really had the potential to be something, but it just fell a little flat for me. And the last one that I read in January, These Violent Delights. Oh man, did you guys hype this one up? Oh, I don't understand. There are gonna be people that love this. There are already people that love this. Let me tell you, this one almost got the dreaded 1 star for me. I really did not like it at all. And I'm heavy into Romeo and Juliet. This is the 2nd time that I'm mentioning Romeo and Juliet in this video, okay? I'm clearly into some Romeo and Juliet retellings. And that's just not what I got from this. I thought it was gonna be, in Shanghai with gangs fighting each other and forbidden love, and I was ready, man. I was ready. And I got Scalp Bug Monster. Scalp Bug Monster. That's what I got from this book. I got nothing. I got nothing else besides that. It got an extra bump for creativity, so I rounded it up to 2 stars, but this is not the book for me. All right, so those are all of the 20 books that I read in January. If I read this much next month, I'm just gonna do a halfway recap, okay, so that I don't have to talk about 20 books at once, because who wants to watch all of that? All right, that's all that I've got for you today. Thank you for tuning in to Elise Reads and Speaks, and I will catch you next time, guys. Bye!